Alright guys, welcome back to another video. So this video right here, I don't really have anything planned. It's just kind of like a spontaneous idea I had, but if you notice here, I've done 101 LeetCode problems. Still, I'll probably call this like what I've learned after 100 LeetCode problems. But yeah, so essentially what this video is it's going to be me talking about my confidence level in passing a technical interview with 100 LeetCode problems under my belt. So for some of you, that might seem like a lot. And for some of you, that might seem like nothing at all because maybe you've done upwards of like 300 problems or 500 even. But I'll get to this later, but I don't really think it matters how many LeetCode problems you do, because if you're studying, it really just depends on how you study, because if you do 100 LeetCode questions and you really like study the correct way and you have a deep understanding of the topics you've covered, I think you can pass a lot of technical screenings. Now the flip side would be, let's say you've done like 300 questions, 500. Well, if you haven't been studying the right way, I don't care how many questions you've done, like, you still might not be comfortable enough to pass a lot of technical screenings because there's so many factors that go into it. It's not just like who solved the most LeetCode problems at all. That it's maybe that's like 20% of it. The other 80% comes in your technical communication skills, right? Your level of comfort on certain topics. Just like your level of understanding of the language you're using. There's a lot that goes into it, guys. But yeah, so this video is kind of for, first of all, it's for myself in the future to kind of like look back and see where I was at before. And just to give you guys some background information right now. Currently there's about a month and a half left in the summer. And I've got 100 LeetCode questions done so far. I'm about halfway done with cracking the coding interview. I've also done some problems on this website here, firecode.io. So if I sign in, so on this website right here, I've done about around like 50 problems, I'd say. And that was even before I started any LeetCode. Plus, I've done maybe about like the 50-ish problems in cracking the coding interview. So I'm not just going into like LeetCode with like no background knowledge. I have used some other resources to kind of like supplement my knowledge. And the reason I'm telling you guys this is because I don't want you to think that like I just jumped in to LeetCode and like started solving questions. Like, no way. I tried that before and it absolutely did not work. You need, I'm not going to talk about this much longer because I want to get into the second half of this video, but what I will say is this, like, for anybody looking to start their LeetCode grinding like journey, you need at least like some data structures and algorithms course like under your belt, right? At least like an introductory course. Plus, I'd say even after that, I don't even think you can jump into LeetCode questions. I think that like you should use a website like Firecode or use cracking the coding interview to get you more comfortable, because with Firecode, the questions are still challenging, but they're not as hard as, and they're not as overwhelming as a lot of these LeetCode questions. And with cracking the coding interview, I think that's a good prereq for LeetCode, because in cracking the coding interview, they give you hints if you ever get stuck on a problem. And it's the same as in a real technical interview, right? If you get stuck, maybe if your interviewer wants to help you out, they'll give you hints, like whenever you're truly stuck. So yeah, guys, that's the background knowledge. In total, I'd say I've probably done at least like 100 problems like outside of LeetCode. So yeah, I'm just being 100% honest with you guys. And without further ado, I want to get into the second half of this video, which will be me telling you how comfortable I feel about each topic. And finally, I'm going to end off the video with, do I think I could pass a technical interview? Alright, so as you guys can see here, I've opened up a new notepad document, and really, for this part of the video, I just want to give you guys like my level of confidence for each of these broad topics on a scale of 1 to 10. So yeah, after doing 100 LeetCode questions, this is how I feel. I'm going to give my honest opinions so that maybe if you yourself are just starting on LeetCode, you know what to expect, and you know like how much work is required to really get comfortable with these topics. So again, I just want to say, even before LeetCode, I've probably done around 100 to 200 problems just on outside resources, cracking the coding interview, Firecode, and there's a bunch of other websites kind of like sprinkled in there too. So yes, let's start off with arrays and strings. So for arrays and strings, it's tricky to give a rating here because sometimes you'll just be asked to like reverse a string, or maybe you'll be asked to like do some type of dynamic programming solution for some problem. And my point in saying this is like the level of difficulty ranges vastly. Probably the most out of like all of these topics, right? It really just depends like what the problem they give you, or like what problem you're doing. So for this, I guess I'll just give myself a 5 out of 10 because I think, for most string problems where you're just like required to use like a set or something to get some frequencies or like manipulate a string or whatever, I'm pretty comfortable with those. But if the problem requires like a more advanced algorithm, I do struggle. So I think it kind of like balances each other out, and I'll just give myself a 5 out of 10. Now for linked lists, I'm actually going to give myself a 4 out of 10 here because, again, I'm just being real with myself. There's a lot of linked list problems that I can do within like 30 seconds to a minute, but there's a lot of linked list problems that'll take me like 2 hours. So it depends. I mean, and I think the reason I struggle is because like I'm just not comfortable with manipulating pointers. So that's definitely going to be something I work on as I'm getting closer to like 200 LeetCode questions. I have about a month and a half left in this summer, so for the rest of the summer I'll probably focus in on a lot of linked list problems, just so I can get more comfortable with manipulating pointers. But yeah, so 4 out of 10. For stacks and queues, I'm going to be a little bit more confident here and give myself a 7.5, let's say. And the reason I'm giving myself a 7.5 is because on, just looking at a stack and a queue, right? I think I'm very comfortable with like implementing these, right? And a lot of the times with a lot of the problems I do, stack and queue isn't really like the main thing that they're testing me on. For a lot of the problems I'm doing, you have to use a stack and a queue to kind of, implement the algorithm that you want to do. For example, like if I'm doing a problem that requires DFS, I'll use a stack. If I'm doing a problem that requires BFS, I'll use a queue, right? Essentially, like a stack and a queue isn't really like the main course per se. The main course is usually like some type of algorithm that requires you to have stack and queue knowledge, and for that reason, I think I'm pretty comfortable, but I do still think I have a lot of work to do, right? For trees and graphs. So I told you guys I was going to be honest. I'm giving myself a 3. Now you might be saying like, why are you being so harsh on yourself, right? And I'm not even going to lie to you guys. There's a lot of tree and graph problems that I can solve. There are. But at the same time, there's a ton of tree and graph problems that take me like 2 hours to even figure out. So it's kind of like similar to linked lists, right? There's some that I can do pretty quick, but there's a lot of them that I just struggle with. And I think the reason for that is because for tree and graph problems, I think the roadblock just comes in at my like poor understanding of recursion. I think that's a major part as to why I do struggle on a lot of these problems. It's just I don't have solid foundation in recursion. I mean, for me, I've just always struggled with it. I am trying to get better at it, which is good, but my recursion definitely needs a lot of work, and I think that's why my ability to solve tree and graph problems is lacking at the moment. But as I said, I think there's plenty of time in the summer to bump this up to hopefully that 7.5, 8 range. So yeah, for now, 3. For bit manipulation, is it possible to give myself a negative score? I'm just gonna give myself a 0 because, like, have I solved some problems that require bit manipulation? Sure. But, like, just because I've solved them doesn't mean I'm, like, comfortable, right? Because I'm pretty sure the problems that I have solved, I just, like, looked up the YouTube tutorial to do it. And bit manipulation is just kind of something where I heard it's rare that it comes up in interviews, but it's possible, right? So I think if I can just get myself to like an average standing, I think I'll be happy with myself. But yeah, for now, 0 out of 10, just because like I literally haven't even really like studied this summer. So yeah, I'm being real with myself, guys. This is for myself to look back on, see where I was at, and see how much I've improved. So yeah, 0 out of 10. Object-oriented programming and design. So I think it depends, right? In my data structures and algorithms class that I just took last semester, I learned a lot. I think I did learn a lot about object-oriented programming. But that being said, though, I think the level of object-oriented programming and design required in an interview is just not something I have right now. Simply because I haven't gotten to that this summer. Like, I haven't even tried to really study it yet. But for now, I think I'm going to give myself a 3 out of 10. I think that's fair because if you ask me to implement like a stack or like a queue or something like that from scratch, sure, I can do it. But if you ask me to implement like a deck of cards using object-oriented programming, I would have no idea how to do it. And that's simply because I don't have a deep understanding of like encapsulation. And see, I can't even think of other areas because my level of object-oriented programming and design is just not where it should be. This summer, definitely going to get into that and hopefully improve in that area. So hopefully by the end of the summer, this can be upwards towards an 8, right? Now, recursion and dynamic programming. So I think I'm actually going to be a little bit more generous with myself. I'm going to give myself a 4. Now, I don't know why I'm giving myself a 4, but no, I'm kidding. So the reason I'm giving myself a 4 is because if you saw with trees and graphs, I gave myself a 3, right? And that's because like you need recursion to supplement the algorithm that you're going to implement to solve tree and graph problems. But when it comes to recursion by itself, right? By itself, you're not required to like know like anything else. I don't know if I said that right, but yeah. So for recursion and dynamic programming, I give myself about a 4. If this was, keep in mind though, if it was just recursion like on its own, I'd probably give myself maybe like a 4.5 out of 10 or something. But if it was just dynamic programming, I would probably give myself like a 1.5 out of 10. Simply because, like, honestly, dynamic programming is really hard. And it's hard because the principles from one problem don't directly translate to the next one, which makes it very tough. And it's just hard, man. It's just tough. And I don't think that's a reason to give up. I just think that, like, it just requires a certain amount of time to be put in. And I haven't really put in that amount of time just yet. And that's something I need to work on this summer, again, so I can get that up to hopefully like a 7 or an 8. Now, sorting and searching. So when it comes to sorting and searching, I think I'm going to give myself, honestly, I think I'd give myself a 6.5. I think that's fair. Now, I'm giving myself a 6.5 because when it comes to implementing binary search, I actually feel really comfortable. I feel very comfortable implementing it, and that's usually what you're going to be asked to do when it comes to sorting and searching. For searching just like on its own, so like kind of if I did like the same thing here, where I just put them as like separate categories, for sorting, I'd probably give myself, for searching, I'd give myself a 6.5 out of 10. But for sorting on its own, honestly, probably maybe like a 3 out of 10. I mean, and that's just because like I don't really see how like sorting directly translates to like interview questions. I don't know if that makes sense, but like for example, like merge sort, right? Like in an interview, is anybody gonna ask you to like implement merge sort, like, or quick sort? Like, are they gonna ask you like, hey, implement quick sort to sort this array? Like, and that's just like me being naive because I haven't really done a lot of problems that require sorting. So yeah, I mean, just because I haven't done it doesn't mean that they don't exist. Obviously, there's a whole chapter in Cracking the Coding interview about it. So obviously they ask you it. So I really just need to expose myself to a wider breadth of problems so that hopefully along that way I encounter sorting problems and I get more comfortable doing them. Alright guys, so I just added everything up and it looks like my overall score is a 4.5 out of 10 on average. The total was 40.5 and the total points possible is 100. If you divide those out, you get 4.5 out of 10. And do I think that's an accurate score? I think so, because I think there's a lot of topics that I'm very comfortable with, and if given in an interview, I think I can do pretty well. But there's a lot more topics that I completely suck at, and if I was given it in an interview, I would bomb. So, you know what? And I think I'm happy with a 4.5 out of 10, because if I gave myself a too high of a score, I might think, oh, I don't even need to work as hard. But seeing that I have a 4.5 out of 10, like on my own scale, that tells me that I need to like work a lot harder, and I will. There's enough time this summer, and I'll definitely put in the work. Now, the question you guys have been wondering: if I was given a technical interview today, would I pass it? I think I would. You guys are gonna hate me, but I think it depends, right? I think for certain questions, maybe if you asked me to implement like binary search, something I'm comfortable with, you asked me to implement, a simple form of DFS, BFS that I'm comfortable with, I think I would do pretty darn well. But if you ask me a topic that I'm not comfortable with, I think I will struggle a lot, and I will probably fail the interview. So, to answer the question of do I think I could pass a technical interview today? Sure, why not? I think that, anybody could, because, let's say you get lucky and you get a problem that you've done before. I think anybody could do that and anybody could pass it. But that being said, though, the odds of you getting a question, first of all, the odds of you getting a question that you've seen before, highly unlikely. Like, when you're studying, don't bank on that. Don't think that, like, if I just do a bunch of problems, I'm good, because they will ask you something that you have not seen before. 100%. 100%. You know what? And maybe there's a chance that they could ask you something that you've seen before. Who knows? But, like, honestly, even if they do ask you something that you've seen before, you still might not get it. And that's just the reality of the situation. Like, so really when you're studying, focus on the material and the topics and not the specific question. Don't memorize questions. Please don't. But yeah, I'm going to try to live by that same principle for the rest of the summer. So hopefully I can bump up this overall score and get more comfortable. But yeah, sure, I could pass some technical interviews, sure. But I don't feel very confident in passing most technical interviews. And that's my final answer. So got a lot of work to do. Hopefully, future self, you see this in a couple months and you've improved. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I'll see you in the next one.